Hello guys, welcome back. In this Jetpack Compose tutorial, we are going to learn about button bar and how to handle navigation between different button tabs, saving states between composables. And so without further ado, let's get started. So now, before we start, we have to go to this build the creator module app, and we are going to pass in this dependency so that we can use it. Here's it here, the navigation dependency. Now let's sync here now. Let's navigate here to this package and create here a new file. And we're going to call this navigation. So inside this file, we're going to declare all of our navigations. So in order to create a navigation, we have to create the bottom screen tabs. And in order to do that, we're going to use SL, the class for this purpose. Now let's create here SL, the class, and we're going to call this screeners. Now, as you can see here, we are going to get the drawables from this, which I have prepared in advance. So if you come here to this race and come here to drawable, you can see I have added this. And if you want, just you can come here to this resource manager and place this button here and create these vector assets. So we're going to use this inside our applications. So right now here, we have to create our list of tabs. So we have to create here an object that is going to hold up the screen, and this one we're going to call it home, and this home is going to inherit from this screen. So now you can create here separate classes. So whenever you want the number of these screens, so for here we want to have the notification. So now, after creating here the list of these classes, so we are going to use these inside our bottom navigation. So let's just create here our bottom navigation screen. So this bottom navigation screen here requires us to pass in here two parameters. So we are going to pass in here the nav controller. So now we want to access the backstack entry. So we are going to call here the navigation backstack entry, and we're going to use this backstack entry in order to get the current destination. So we're going to use here delegate method, and then we're going to use this nav controller, which has been passed from the main activity. And what we want to access here, we want to get the current backstack entry as a state so that we can get the state. Whenever this is going to be changed, we're going to get the uppermost entry inside the backstack. So if you see here, you can see that this will trigger recomposition and return the top entry on the backstack. So we're going to get the top entry. And in order to do that, we have to get here the current destination. So we can call this current destination. And now we're going to use this nav backstack entry. In order to, we have to use the safe call here and get the destination. So we're going to use this inside our application, the bottom navigation composable. You can see here we have this bottom navigation composable, which you can use it to structure our bottom navigation. And if you press here Control Q, you can see that there are a bunch of parameters which you can pass. You can see here we can try and change the background color, the content color, the elevation, and also pass in here the content of our composables, which we have created. So for now, we're going just to leave this as is. We're going to use them inside this bottom navigation here, and we're going to call these items, and we want to use them for each statement here. And now we are getting here the screens, so we can reference this to be screens. So if you want to pass in a customized navigation item, you could try and create your own. But for now, we are going just to use a built-in navigation items, which just does a decent job. So we can use this navigation item. And as you can see here now, we have a bunch of parameters which we are required to pass. And now here we can also pass in here the icon. If you press Ctrl Q, you can see there are a bunch of parameters which we can pass in here. They're selected. So if this is going to be the selected tab or the selected navigation item. And inside here, the on click, now we can specify where to navigate and how to save the state and other things. And here pass in the icon and also the modify this, and also passing here the label and other parameters which you are going to see later in this video. Now, for now, here we have to check this if has been selected or not. And for this case, we can try and use the current destination in order to give the current item. So now we can use this current destination, and then we can use the route, and we can compare this to the screen's route, which has been passed from these items here, and we can check if this route is going to be similar. And we have just not added here variables, we cannot access the route. In order to do that, now we can access here the route. Then also we have to add here a safe call. And now, as you have seen here, now it's going to return true if this is going to be the selected item. Now, another thing which we have to handle here, if this is going to be clicked, how are we going to show our items? Now, we want to use the navigation controller and navigate to these screens if has been selected. So we can use this navigation controller and navigate to this particular screen. And now we can use the screens. And right now here, we're going to navigate to this screen inside here. Now we can pass in here the icon. Now, as you can see here, we are passing here the painter and not the image vector. So if you're using image vector, you can try just to change this to image vector. And we're using a resource ID, so we can access this by using the painter resource and pass in here the screens. And we can pass in here to now. And now inside here, the label, we can try and launch and use the bottom navigation with this. So I'm going to show you this approach. We are missing something. So later in this video, I'm going to show you how you can manage the state and how you can manage the bottom navigation. And for now here, now we can try and create the composables, which is going to hold up the navigation host. So we're going to pass in here the navigation host controller, and now we can try to navigate to other screens. So now before we start to create here our navigation host, we have to create our navigation screens. And in order to do that, we can come here and create here another coaching class. We're going to call this component. And now inside here, now we can try and create our components, and we are going to create here another composable, and we are going to call this home. And now inside here, now we can try and use a box. So now, as you can see here, we have created the home tab, and we can try to duplicate here and create another composable. So you can have a complex screen just for demonstration purpose. We're just passing here a text. And for example, here we can call this notification here. So now, after creating all of these screens, we can try and use them inside the navigation and the bottom navigation host. So now let's create here the navigation host. And we're going to select this navigation host here. Now we can try and pass in here the navigation controller. And if you don't know about navigations, you can just check this video here. I'm going to link it in the card so that you can learn about this navigation in more detail. So we're going to create here the start destination. Now inside here, now we can create our navigation graph, and we can pass in here the composables. And now we can pass in here the route. Now we're going to duplicate this 3 times, and here we can just change the route here from home to notification. Now, for example, here you could have inside this home, for example, you have another button which is going to navigate you to other screens. So you can pass in here the navigation host controller, or you could just try and create the callback which is going to be executed inside here. So for now here, we are good to go and try to use this inside the main activity. So we can come here to main activity, and right now we can create here our states. So for example, here we're going to create the list of those items. Now we can create here in our of controller. So now we can use this nav controller inside the main activity, and we are going to create here a scaffold. And inside this scaffold, we are going to create here a bottom bar. And inside this bottom bar, we are going to call our bottom navigation. So these are basically all of our screens, and we have defined these 3 screens. And now inside here, now we can create and call those navigation hosts. So now inside here, we can call the bottom nav host, which we have created, and we can pass inside here the navigation controller. And now we are good to go and try and launch our application and see how it's going to respond. Now, as you can see here, our app is launched, and we can try and navigate here to other screens. And if we click this multiple times, it's just going to be difficult to quit this application when you press the back step. Now, as you can see, we are just scrolling through this, and there are multiple items which have been added. And if you see here now, again, if we press this, for example, home tab multiple times, now if we click this navigating back, we are not going to quit the application until we finish this. Now, we're going to fix this right now here. Now, if we jump inside this navigation here, we can scroll down here and come to this bottom navigation. So now, in order to fix those problems, we have to navigate here to this on-click method here, where we have called this nav control, this navigate. Now we can pass in here the navigation option builder so that we can customize and pass in here optional parameters. So the first thing, which when we are clicking that, the same tab, we are going to launch multiple items. So in order to fix that problem, we are going to call the launch single item, launch single top, and we are going to make this to true. So this one is going just to remove for example, here we are going to be at most one copy of the given destination on the top of the back stack. So it's going to remove other stacks if we are going to add them. Now, as you have seen there, we have been creating multiple items of the same item inside the back stack entry. So we are going to remove them. Now, inside here, we can try and create now, and we can remove those stacks of other composables when we are navigating to another composable. And then here we are going to call up pop-up 2. Now, inside here, we have to pass in we have to pass in here the route, and in order to pass that route, we're going to use the navigation controller, which we have passed here, the navigation controller. And what we want to access the graph, and inside this graph, we want to find the starting destination. So we are going to find the starting destination, so where we have started, and pass in the ID. And this is really crucial if you have nested navigations, so that you can find the actual starting destination. So this one is going to find the actual start destination of the graph. And you can see here, it's going to handle cases where the graphing starting destination is itself a navigation graph. So as you can see here, now we have provided this pop-up too, so it's going to remove, for case here, our starting destination is home, and we want to save the state. So for example, here our home state or other composable states, we want to save their state so that we can restore data when a user navigates back to this composable. So we are going to make here the save state and turn in this to true. So now we are saving here the state, and we want to restore the state when a user has clicked at this composable. So we are going to make this also true. So if we have any state that we have in this composable, it's going to be restored. And if you don't save this state inside this pop-up to this restore state, is not going to have any effect So you have to save this state in order to restore the state. So for now, let's try and run our application and see the output again. So the app is launched and nothing has changed visually. Now let's try here and place and navigate to this multiple times. And now if we are here at message, let's try to navigate back. As you can see here, we're jumping straight to home. And if we click this, you're going to just quit the application. And now let's press here home multiple times. And let's try to click this back button. As you can see here, we are navigating off the application instantly. And this is because we have passed those parameters. Now, let's try here and customize our application and pass in here different colors. And when we want to show a label when only this has been selected, so we hide others. For example, here we hide all of these labels when they are not selected. So in order to achieve that functionality, it's just really easy. So it's at this bottom navigation item here. If you press Ctrl Q, you can see here there are parameters which you can pass in. Always show label. So now let's just navigate here and pass in that function. Always show label and pass this to cons. Now, as you have seen here, we can try also to customize our colors. So let's pass in here the selected color, the selected content color, and we can pass in here, for example, secondary color, so that when it has been selected, we pass in the secondary color. And if you are using this material theme, you don't have to specify the unselected color. So it's going to use that on secondary color instead the selected content color in order to define the unselected color. So let's try and run our application and see again. So now, as you can see here, our application is launched and only this one is going to be showing the label, the home, when it has been selected. And as you can see here, this one is much more brighter than others which have not been selected. So let's just click here and we can navigate and we can change also here a content. So for now, let's leave it here. See you in the next video.